microphone there if you want to grab it and pass it around.
A little bit more.
Yeah.
You're good.
Hi, Derek Brown, member of the philosophy department, and member of the BUFA negotiating. Is that better?
Yeah.
Standing right in front of it though. My name is Derek Brown. I'm a member of the philosophy department. I've been at BU for 4 years and a few months, and I'm currently, for the first time, a member of the BU negotiating team.
Hi, thank you for inviting us. My name is David Winter. I'm an assistant professor in the Department of History. This is my 4th year at BU, and like Derek, I'm on the negotiating committee. Okay? For the first time. Okay, thank you.
Hi, my name is Linda McFly. I'm the chair of the Department of History. This is my 13th year here, 3rd president. It's been a trip. And I am just not very happy blocker. I'd far rather be in the classroom with you guys.
Hi, I'm Barbara Rose, chair of English and Creative Writing. I've been here for 8 years now, 2 presidents. Very interesting. I too would love to be in the classroom and have you guys there too, but we have principals as well. And thank you for inviting us again.
I'll say my name in French and then I'll say it in English. My name is Rachel Major. I teach French in the language department. My name is Rachel Major. I've been here, I'm the oldest when I looked around. I'm definitely prehistoric. I've been here for 21 years. And I really care about the student, but this is very important for us, so that we can make just a better place.
I'm Derek Eberts. I'm in the Department of Geography. I've also been here through 2 presidents now, almost as long as them, since 2000. And like all of us, don't want to be here, don't want to be talking to you in this format only. I'd rather be in the classroom and walking around.
This year also Gender and Women's Studies. And this is the start of my 3rd year here, so this is all a very new experience for me to go through.
Hi, I'm Patricia Harms. I'm an assistant professor in history and the coordinator of the Gender and Women's Studies program. It's nice to see a lot of you here. Thank you for coming out to ask questions and think thoughtfully and critically, which is what we teach. So, way to go. I would rather be teaching as well, and this is the beginning of my 5th year.
Hi, I'm Erika Serrano. I teach Spanish in the language department. It's my 3rd year here. I encourage you to support the cause of the professors and instructors.
Tashi Goal, Nigadishim English and Kathy. I'm the visual and I'm from the Visual and Aboriginal Arts Department. I'm the art history lecturer. I had a really great lecture plan for today. I wish I could have great. I am also a curator and critical writer working in the contemporary Aboriginal art world. And I wanted to teach at this university. We have the only Aboriginal arts accredited program in this country. And I wanted to be a professor and be able to give the sort of education that I, as an Aboriginal student, didn't get. Miigwech.
Okay, so we're going to start out with question and answers. So same as before, if students have questions, if you want to line up with a microphone. And then we'll allow questions to start to last up to a minute, and the responses to last for up to 2 minutes.
The administration said that what they're offering right now will result in a 13% increase overall over the next 3 years. And if what you guys are asking will result in tuition fees almost doubling, what is your response to that?
Yeah, totally. It was that if they took the amount that you guys wanted, that students like cover that, they would have to charge double on tuition.
First I've heard that. I guess it's. So there's a number of financial stuff left here. Yeah. I can sit. Everyone can see me. So on the what we call money issue, the issues concerning finances, we do, as of the last round of bargaining, as of the last bargaining meeting, have a number of things left on our side of that issue. And the reason that there are a number of things left on our side of the money issue is because we've had a very difficult time over the last several months getting them to bargain with us about money issues. And I'm not going to go through the whole history of it over the last 6 months. And I'm happy to do that if you want, but I don't think it's a good way to answer the question. But we did on Tuesday at a certain point. We gave them some responses to some of the other things and said, now, we have some other stuff too, but we're not going to talk about anything else anymore until we actually start talking about money stuff. Because to that point, in our view, they had been very, very resistant to do so. So we just drew the line. And we had in the previous week withdrawn some things on our money package and pulled down from our salary requests. And we hadn't heard back from them yet, so we just said, we need to hear back from them. We need to start talking about this. And they came back with a new offer, which was slightly better than their other offer. We talked about it for a while. And we talked about it outside of the table for a while as a team. And we came up with a new counteroffer where we withdrew our last pension issue, came down on salaries and took off a couple of other things and gave to them and said, okay, so let's talk about this. And then instructed or requested that they would consider that and come back with another offer. So they did, they went away for a while. And then they came back with the exact same offer that they had given us previously. So it's not that, so I don't know how they calculate all that stuff, but you might not have seen what's left on the money stuff on both sides. But in our view, the negotiating about money started Tuesday, and we have a ways to go, and it's our intention and our desire, and it was on Tuesday our desire to keep negotiating on money. The message we got from them, they gave us the exact same response as they did the previous conversation we had, was that they were done. They didn't want to negotiate on this issue anymore. Maybe we read that behavior theirs incorrectly, but we felt as a committee that by giving us the exact same offer back, that's what they were telling us that they were done. So yeah, we've got some stuff left on it. I think it's fair to say we have no expectation of getting the stuff that's coming. That's not how it works. It's about negotiating back and forth. We'll take out this, we try and do something about that, fix this. But in our view, we are, for reasons that we're not happy about, we're at an early stage of that conversation because we feel they've been putting off this conversation for quite a long time. I don't know how to respond to the costing of that money, because I don't know how they did that, but I think that gets at what's underlying the question that you're asking. Does it? Thank you.
You definitely went over our 2-minute limit, but because, yeah, it's okay. It's okay, because I think it's about the process as well, so that's okay.
Yeah, I'm not at the table, so I can't comment on the process of negotiation, but I'd be curious to hear how she justifies her claim about her tuition, because of course that matters to you. 2 things you should know if you don't already. One is that your tuition pays a little less than a quarter of the operation of this institution, so it's hard to imagine how they anticipate making up whatever they think we're asking for out of your tuition. And secondly, of course, you all know that the government regulates our tuition in this province, and given the levels at which it's gradually been deregulated in recent years, for your tuition to double, if I do my math correctly, I understand how these processes work, will take roughly 30 to 35 years. at the current rates. It can't be, there's no way she can sustain the claim that this is going to double your tuition. I can't see where that comes from.
And one of the other things, we've moved significantly. We've moved far more than the employer has. The entry bargaining positions, I won't bore you with sort of how it unfolded, but we've moved off our original demands by more than 4% in terms of wage demands. They've moved up less than 2%, okay, across the life of the contract. Okay, so, I mean, we have moved significantly, and we as Derek says, you know, this is not going to be the final, this is not going to be the shape of the final deal, but we need them coming back and giving us some indication that they're bargaining in good faith, right? We need them to show us that they're willing to deal with us, okay? That's basically our position.
Next question.
So the university has not locked you out. And what that's done, in most people's general opinion, seems to be an attempt to fracture and, you know, it's like Pops language is that, oh, you know, we regret that some classes might not start on Monday. So I'm wondering what the faculty's, the general opinion of that is, because the administration said to us that they've been in contact with some of you that want to come back and teach, and you know, obviously you all want to come back and teach, but they want to come back and teach on Monday, and just what your opinion of this tactic is, because it's causing us a lot of problems, because frankly we don't know what to do, because some of us want to do stuff, and some of us want to continue sitting on our butts, and you know.
We don't like this tactic. We interpret it as an attempt from the get-go to break the union. That's what she's trying to do. Now, this woman is a former NDP candidate in Prince George, British Columbia. She's gone from that to union busting. I just can't put any other logic on it.
Tommy Douglas's university.
At Tommy Douglas's home institution. I can tell you right now, just so you know, if any of you are in history, and I see some familiar faces out there, there will be none of us there on Monday. None of us. You know, I don't think it's our place to tell you what to do. You are all intelligent, thoughtful human beings. There's a range of political opinion here. I think, you know, partly you should be guided by your own beliefs, what you want to do. But at the same time, if the union is broken, this is going to be a broken institution. I can tell you that right now. It's really not going to be pleasant either for faculty or students. We hope that you'll honor our picket lines, though I've told my students, you know, you have the absolute right, and I encourage you to go into the library to continue working during this, because someday it will end. But, but you know, it's not my place to tell you what to do, but I hope that you will respect the line. The sooner we put pressure on the administration, the more pressure we put on them, the quicker I think this will end.
Just to that question before we move on, Chris gave me your phone because on the Brown University website they posted an article about Brown University's position on locking out the faculty, and specifically criticizing BUFA for its concerns about students next week, and indicating that, you know, there are a variety of reasons why they're not going to lock out students. So I think that's an important discussion for people to absolutely have here.
I was here at the last strike, and the last strike they made the decision to lock us all out. And in my opinion, that was actually one of the few smart things that they did during that action, because, and their logic to us and to you at the time was that that would ensure equity. That when the strike is over, students are all in the same position and we all move forward together. And clearly this administration is not taking that approach. And I can tell you from some personal experience at another institution where this happened, and there was no lockout, and some faculty crossed and some didn't, the environment was absolutely toxic, and it still is today. within departments, not even just across the campus. And I don't think any of us want you guys to live through a place where we have that kind of environment for 20 years or 25 years, long after this president's gone or long after this agreement's settled and so on. So these are questions that have a really long-term implication, and it's a really negative long-term implication. So I'm not crossing the line on Monday unless we have a tentative agreement. There is no line. And I don't think any of us should. I respect everybody's right. They have a legal right to do so. I won't be happy about it if they do, and I'd ask you to also respect that.
Tracy, one clarification. Critical of BUFA, is that?
Yeah, it was about Busu's email, I guess. I didn't read the whole thing.
Yeah, I just skimmed it. Basically, about Busu's position, I don't want to say. But they haven't even read it. Okay, well, I'll read part of it. The Brown University Students' Union has recently issued a communication to its membership and to the wider community urging the university to lock out faculty rather than allowing them to return to work should individual faculty members choose to work during the strike. Prior to this communique, apparently she speaks French, representatives of BUSU met with the administration and expressed the same request. We provided our reasons to BUSU orally, but these have now been passed on in the BUSU press release. We offer the following explanation. There are a number of reasons why the president...
The email is quite long, so
yeah,
I don't know.
No, I'm just going to summarize the points. Says lockout is a weapon. Professors have told administration that they do not support the strike and want to teach, some of them. She says 28% said, I thought it was 71 and 29.
Just keep going.
So,
I want a time frame here.
If professors want to teach, it's their right to teach. That they locked out professors last time, it led to the longest dispute in BUSU's history. The administration of the university, the unanimous choice was not to lock out. Then they talk about students and how much they care about us.
Okay. Question.
Okay. So my last question to the administration was to specifically address how we've been told that the students, there's a desire to protect them and ensure the enrichment of their education this semester. And my question specifically was pointed towards the protection of students with disabilities, those who can't just go home and necessarily read their textbooks and derive the type of education they need to be successful this semester. Their response to that was that they could make Michelle Magnuson services essential and therefore have those still available. I just wanted to kind of get your impressions on what that would mean and the fact that students and Michelle would have to cross the picket line in order to be able to obtain those services.
At the outset of every strike, there's a strike protocol established, and a number of people, including for example, scientists who are working with animals, etc. They're allowed on campus to feed the animals. People can attend experiments, etc. We've already got, I think, long-term counseling. We've signed a protocol to allow them to cross. We are not at war with the students, right? We are not in a dispute with the students. If there's a case we missed, we're happy to.
I'm happy that we missed it.
Yeah, we're happy to. We're happy to extend the strike protocol coverage to that person. Okay.
Does that mean that there is a support from BUFA for students that need to cross the picket line to access Michelle's services?
What kind of support?
Just students with disability supports. So they have.
We've got no problem with that. Yeah.
The question is, like we're hearing in our Canada in all these cases, in Canada Post, what is essential? And if a reasonable discussion decides that yes, that is essential, well, of course, we would support that. But deeming things essential for the sake of breaking the union is a different matter. So if it's a reasonable conversation that results in that decision, we'd absolutely support it.
Thank you very much.
My question is that throughout this whole thing, we've been told very little. Most of us have no idea what the issues are. We didn't even hear a whisper of there being a strike until the day after the voluntary withdrawal date, which I think was a little underhanded, because it completely removes us the opportunity of leaving and getting our tuition back. Because someone like myself, I can't speak for anyone, but I'm assuming we're all really poor. We're living on minimum wage, scraping this together.
Voluntary withdrawal date, because I was told it's like
not the voluntary withdrawal, it's the full refund.
The full refund, sorry, the full refund date, without getting an F. Because I personally had to scrape together money to come here. So my question is, what exactly is it that has gotten you out on the line instead of teaching? What are the issues that are preventing us from getting our education?
So the reason that it stopped on Tuesday or Wednesday morning at 5 o'clock, the reason that negotiations ended on Tuesday or Wednesday morning at 5 o'clock was in effect the reason that I stated earlier in answer to your question. We had many open things on the table, and the response we got from them was, we're not changing our view. And then a verbal, we think we're too far apart. What kinds of things are still open? There's about 25. Some big ones are things about salaries. Most of the pension stuff we've just removed and said that's okay, we're not going to change, we're not going to be able to make improvements to our pensions this time around. I guess that's fine. You have to figure some things out. There's technically a number of what we call language issues concerning how to define different ranks in the institution and the processes that we go through to get hired and fired and tenured and promoted. Right? So they made dozens of proposed changes to all of that. And as far as I can tell, logistically, there's a lot of those that are still on the table. And that falls under the ways in which we go about it. So those things are, the current standards for those are detailed in the existing collective agreement. It's a very well-formulated legal document. And it seems to be working all right. We're pretty happy with the people who've been hired and performing. And their initial position was to rewrite most of that. And that's been taking almost every meeting for the last 6 months, is trying to understand what these proposals are about. So those really have to be totally resolved before we can sign off on any collective agreement. If we don't have a clear agreement on procedures for hiring and firing, so that's another large set of issues that's still there. There's others, but I could try and go through my other one. Those are the kinds of things. You want to ask that?
Derek, when you speak into microphone, hold it like this.
Hold it like this? Better? Oh yeah, that is better. Does that answer your question? Do you have a follow-up?
Yeah, one thing that both sides are doing obviously is trying to gain the support of the students. And I think this time around we're a lot more apprehensive about throwing our support in with the faculty, seeing as this did just happen 3 years ago. I said in the meeting with the administration, this is not my first strike, nor is it several other people's. My question is, it's gone blank.
It's okay. Best questions are very quiet.
If you're looking for the support of the students, if either side is looking for the support of the students, I think a little more openness and a little more honesty is important. And if I can just ask one question to everyone, every single professor I've talked to, which is amazing, every single professor I've talked to said they don't want to be on strike. But by show of hands, if you're comfortable with this, how many of you voted yes to strike? And I understand that there are times when there's a strike when it's needed, but when you say you're not at war with us, you're working for us, but when it comes down to it, the only people you're hurting is us.
And yes, I agree wholeheartedly. I loathe this process. I loathe the fact that students are continually held hostage. I think it's wrong. I think there has to be a better way of resolving this. But I also know that that's never going to happen from within the institution. It will only happen if it is imposed by the government, and neither political party has the political will to do so. So we're stuck with this process. And the implication of the kinds of changes that Derek was talking about were to remove a lot of the protections that we have right now in hiring, in promotion, in tenure processes. We have a lot of say. We have committees who make decisions. What the president wants to do is to take a lot of that power, put it in the hands of the deans and herself. And this would make us very, very vulnerable, particularly, I mean, if you have a good dean who's fair, well, not so much a problem, but there's no guarantee that every dean is going to be fair. And in fact, we have some who are notably unfair on a fairly regular basis. So from our point of view, we have to protect ourselves. My point of view personally is that they already have all the tools they need to accomplish what they want to, and that's to make this a better place. No one is arguing with that aim. We all want the university to be better. But making the faculty more vulnerable, giving her more power to be even more arbitrary doesn't get us there. It just doesn't get us there. You know, it's just, the former president nixed a hiring. He decided the candidate just wasn't suitable. He said no, and that was the end of it. They have the power, they just don't want to use it because they have to talk to us. They just want to be able, as far as we can figure out, they want to be able to make the decision. End of story. And we have to protect ourselves. I'm really, really sorry. But, you know, we don't have a choice.
I want to add one point to that too. You asked whether we voted for the strike, and I think it's important that you know that those of us who voted for the strike, and yes, it wasn't all of us, nobody votes for a strike because they want a strike. Nobody, not a single person votes for a strike because they want a strike. It's a tool in bargaining. It's unfortunately necessary evil that it ended up being exercised. But you know, you reach a point in any negotiations where, and we're at that point pretty early this time, if the proposal coming from the administration is going to erode our working conditions, yes, there's a question of putting the students first, and that's always in our minds, but we have to protect ourselves as well. And you reach a point where you say, how much will you give up before you say, no, that's enough, we can't do it. And we were looking at giving up a lot. We're still looking at giving up a lot if we don't make some more progress. So how much are you willing to give up? And that's the question about this right.
I think one way of looking at it is to remember that our working conditions are your learning conditions. Okay?
I just think that's something that has to be driven home.
I've been here for 21 years. I've seen the conditions, the atmosphere go down for the past 10 years. And it's not getting better. And I do mean it, I did vote for the strike, I did, but I thought it was the only way we could accomplish something, or at least send a message out. And it does, I'll repeat it again, and I truly mean it. I really care about my students. But I also care about an environment where we can work and be at ease. And Dr. Poff said when she first arrived here, that she was trying to improve the conditions, and within 2 years, she's the opposite.
Keep going on questions. Maybe for the sake of time, in addition to the time limits, which people aren't really following, we'll only allow 2 faculty members to speak per question. Okay, go.
Need a gavel.
I know.
Okay, 2 quick questions. You mentioned that the former president stopped a hire, and one of the things we want to know is what specific institutions is the president looking at changing, and how will that process change? What was, not so much what was their position at the bargaining table, but give us a general sense of what that change would look like. And secondly, of course, a lot of our previous discussion featured strongly on the lack of a lockout and the awkward position that puts students in. And when Dr. Poff was asked what protection she can offer students, the ultimate answer was a non-answer. It's no. She said it's your decision to cross the picket line or not, live with the consequences. So I'd like to kind of ask the same of BUFA. Is there anything BUFA can do as an organization to protect students who choose to stand in solidarity and not cross the picket line, even if their professors choose not to? Thank you.
So now they're strategizing.
But I think that ultimately you need to make the decision that you need to make, and we need to do what we need to do, and we have to respect each other for that. I think that I think most of your professors, again, recognize that there are things that you need to do to ensure your education, and there are things we need to do to ensure positive working environments for us. And we'll respect you either way.
Just say quickly, and at the end of any strike, there's always a protocol that is signed between the union and the employer, guaranteeing that there will not be repercussions against workers. And in this case, I would really want in that protocol that students who chose not to come to class in support of the strike, which these professors say did carry on, that they not be penalized academically. I would want that part of the protocol.
Your first question was about what kinds of changes to...
Hey Derek, remember that?
Your first question. Who holds their elbow like this? I know. So your first question was to give you some indication of the kinds of changes to the working conditions that would result if we accepted the position that they put forward. Is that right? Yeah. So, in part because I can't, off the top of my head, remember exact language, things that they put forth, I'm not going to do that. I'll try and answer your question in a slightly different way. So if you think of this collective agreement that we have, and this is the document that defines how the workplace functions. The processes that you have to go through to hire someone, the criteria that someone has to meet in order to be hired at a particular rank, processes that you have to go through if you want to get tenure, right, the criteria that have to be satisfied, and so on for promotion. And it's used both in applicants' cases where an applicant is applying for one of our jobs, but especially in-house if someone is going up for tenure promotion. You look at the collective agreement, you read all the guidelines and all the criteria, and you prepare your application by reference to this. So it has to be very clear, very laid out, and it has to tell you exactly what you need to do in order to reach these criteria and get through this procedure in an effective way, similarly for promotion. And then on the other side, with respect to hiring and tenures and promotions, for hiring we have hiring committees. There's faculty in there and administration. For tenure and promotion, we have tenure committees and promotion committees, and those both have faculty and administration in there. And they take the collective agreement in all those cases and they look at it and say, okay, what are the criteria that has to be met by an individual to get tenure and promotion? What are the procedures that we have to follow through in order to do that? So it's very, very important that the document be really clear in terms of criteria, really clear in terms of procedures that have to be followed. What they gave us 6 months ago was an initial position which involved, in effect, completely rewriting what we have right now. There's dozens, if not hundreds, of proposed changes to all of these criteria and procedures that we have. So we've been working through them to see how many of them we can keep, maybe all, how many of them we can't keep. And it's become quite obvious, I think, to the people at the table on our side that the system they've suggested with all of their new definitions and new procedures and so on is flawed in really, really problematic ways. Really problematic ways. And I think we did a very good job of maybe not convincing them of that, but of showing them some of the flaws that are out there. So for example, in response to some of the objections that we made to what would happen given if we were to implement their criteria, they fixed something. This is the procedure we've been going to. We object to something that they propose, and then they come back and try to propose a fix. I know it's more than 2 minutes.
Oh, yeah.
Yes, the question is that these are some substance in these.
It's okay, sounds good.
So we objected to part of their proposal, and their response was to fix something else. And in this case, this had to do with procedures for hiring people. So their response was to change the criteria that involved in formulating a letter of appointment, a letter that you send to an applicant. I don't know if you've heard this or not. So the proposal that they put forward was to change the criteria for letter construction such that they can actually allow the university to offer jobs to people who don't meet the criteria for those jobs. We were saying to them, the criteria you've got are going to, if we implement them, we're going to exclude several people that we've hired that are really good. So you can't have that. So their answer was, well, we'll just change the kind of letter we can draft so that in the letter we can say, we'll hire you, but you don't meet the criteria for this job. And our answer to that was, that's ludicrous. Why would you possibly want to accept criteria that are going to rule out people you want to hire? And why would you possibly want to send out a letter in the mail that says, we're Brandon University, and we want to offer you a job as an assistant professor, but we don't think you're qualified to do it. It's just lunacy from our point of view. So we've been engaging in this dialogue with them, and our conclusion now is this very complicated system that they proposed to replace the existing thing. It's just got too many problems. It's just fundamentally flawed. And the one that we've got right now, there's probably some problems in there, but it doesn't have nearly as many problems as the one they proposed. And none of these fundamentally, what I think are unacceptable problems are what they proposed. Does that answer your question?
Next time we hit the 2-minute mark, I'm actually going to cut people off. And we're going to go until about 20 after 1 o'clock or 2 o'clock since we started late, so we want to give everyone a fair amount of time.
First of all, I'd just like to speak in defense of some of my profs who I feel will probably be coming back next week, even if the strike continues. I am a music education student, and I know a lot of my profs have professional obligations that go outside of the university. For instance, the symphonic band will be performing with 3 high school groups in a couple of weeks, and the concert choir and chorale have a contract with the Winnipeg Symphony Orchestra to perform with them. And also, for student teaching purposes, the schools are expecting us to come out. It does affect the schools as well, so I'd just like to say that in defense of some profs that will be causing that, and I think will be causing the picket line. Next, my question for you is, I get the sense that you all view the strike as a sort of last measure, final resort kind of thing. However, my question to that is, why was a conciliator not called before going on strike? And in hopes of preventing the strike and the disruption to our education.
You're wasting time.
I can't speak to your specific, to the specific situation you're describing. We have no problem with our members. There are mechanisms whereby members can cross the picket line for specific purposes. They can get a ticket from the picket captain to do that. If they do that, that's one thing. However, if they cross the picket line without obtaining that ticket, we see that as being scat labor. Okay, so if they discuss it with the picket captain and it's okay with the picket captain, generally we consider that. We don't think that's strike breaking. Okay.
Still 1 minute.
I'm done.
But isn't there another part of the question?
Oh, the second.
Conciliation thing. So you call conciliators and arbitrators, mediators. You call those people in when stuff is like you're not talking to each other anymore. There's a conciliator in town now. We met with him yesterday, and we're going to meet with him again tomorrow. Your question: why don't you do this beforehand? And the answer is because we felt we were productively talking. What changed on Tuesday, I think it's fair to say in our view and theirs, was, as I said, we gave them a counter proposal where we moved on lots of stuff, and they gave us the exact same thing back. So that signal, as we read it, was, oh, not talking to us anymore. And then they said, we think we're too far apart. So when you get that signal from the other side, it looks like at that point, for that moment, the talks had broken down. And it happened to coincide with the strike happening in 2 hours from then. If you want to look at that as a coincidence or not, I don't know. But that's what happened. And then the next day, which was yesterday, a conciliator was brought in and we met with him and we will meet with him again tomorrow.
Okay, thanks for clarifying. The other thing is, in the context of some of Derek's earlier remarks, we really think that we got to the issues just about 2 or 3 days ago, okay? That much of it before this was sort of like the opening part of the game. Bargaining sort of really started on Tuesday. We're committed to a negotiated settlement, and that's ultimately what we want to get. And we think we can do it. If they're willing to move, we think we can do it expeditiously.
Okay, so first off, I just want to say I know there's been a lot of questions about issues, and maybe I just feel like they haven't quite been answered, but what issues right now that you guys are discussing specifically affect students? And I think that that's really the biggest concern that students have, because, and I know it's difficult to answer in 2 minutes, and I know that students can go to BUFA.org and there's bulletins about each collective bargaining negotiations. And if there was another website with this information, I would tell you to go there too, but this is the only place that we can get information on the bargaining sessions. So just, you know, like a few issues, just a quick overview of that if you can. I know it's difficult. Sorry. What issues right now are on the table of collective bargaining that will specifically affect students?
So,
like, I know it's difficult.
There's very little in the collective bargaining or in the collective agreement that speaks to how we run our classes.
Sorry, I'll clarify there. I mean, like, I'm sorry, just that one thing that we talked about yesterday at our student forum was that changing criteria to hire professors means that professors can only have a PhD, get tenure track if they have a PhD, which a lot of our favorite professors don't have PhDs, yet they're remarkable teachers, and we feel that they should stay within our institution for the quality of our institution. Furthermore, another thing that we've discussed is workload, and the fact that there's research requirements as well as reduced workloads, which means that we are looking at reduction in classes or increases in amounts of sessional professors, which we don't have money in the budget line to do, that Dr. Poff has indicated that's the case, which she said she would cut small classes as a result. Okay, and so these are the issues I'm talking about that directly affect us as a student population, as well as even in different ways. And so can someone speak to those issues?
Go to the first one.
I'll speak quick. I was hired with the understanding that I have an equivalent to a PhD with my training, my work, my education, and having contributed to the Aboriginal arts community for 12 years. So this new regulation about tenure affects me staying here, because I can go to another university and my curatorial work, my writing, my lecturing, my community service to my community will be recognized as being worthy to go towards tenure. Also, in our visual arts department, we're about to lose one of our professors, Colleen Kutchell, who really has been here for a long time. She teaches art history. According to what's happening, a PhD is the required degree to teach art history. She also teaches studio. We want to replace her with another Aboriginal professor. There are less than 10 Aboriginal professors in this country working in my field with PhDs. Because guess what? There's no PhD program in my specific field yet. So what happens? How do we hire an Indigenous artist / art historian with this new regulation when we don't have programs? Western academia hasn't caught up to us yet. But we're doing what we can.
To that question?
Yeah, like we know the answers, right? Like we've asked you guys these things before, and it's just important that I think students hear as well some of the workload thing. Is that still on the table? Is that still an issue?
The workload thing is like 10 things across the table on Tuesday. I'm trying to remember. what was in the final. But so if we do reduce the workload by 3 credit hours for people doing basic research, faculty views that in general as a good thing, because we want to encourage people who are working really hard on research. In some cases, it's 15 to 20 hours a week on top of your teaching, if not more. So we like that. The difficulty of doing that is those people right now are teaching 18 credit hours, and how do you make up those classes? So our proposal was to suggest that we have additional money from the administration to hire sessions to make up for that loss in teaching. At the table, if memory serves, they have never answered that question. They've never answered it at all. They never said, no, we're not going to have sessionals, or that's a bad idea, or we're going to start canceling classes. They've just never said anything. And you might say, well, why don't you just make them say something? It doesn't work that way. You can try, but at every stage when you're sitting across the table, they have the option to say, I'll think about it. I'll take that under consideration. They have the option to not answer. It's just there. And they've never given us an answer.
That provides something.
Ben?
I have one question. Is it not true that in 2008 mediation was attempted prior to a strike and that it did not work?
I don't know.
I was told today that the mediation didn't happen until after the strike last time, and it happened later after the strike.
We're not trying to equivocate. I just don't think it was actually what the answer to that.
Okay. I have other questions. With regard to the openness and BUFA not being very open as well as the university, are you guys not bound to some extent in your negotiations with an agreement of confidentiality until the actual contract is signed and everything? Like, is there not some sort of...
Like, are you asking whether or not they're allowed to talk to us about these things?
Yes, like, are there not limits or like some sort of respect and confidentiality as a part of bargaining in good faith or something? I don't know the exact...
Well, I don't know the specifics of that. I don't believe there is, but what I can tell you as students is that all the information that is posted on the BUFA website is exactly the information that all the members of BUFA have. We don't have any more information than that. So as far as keeping us informed, which is BUFA's job to do, and I think they're doing a good job of it, you have access to all of that. We're not sending it to the student emails and so on, but it's all posted on our website, which is publicly accessible. And you don't have any less information than we have.
So, maybe slightly more directly answer that. As I understand it, and maybe I'm wrong, this is my first time doing this, as I understand it, our job after a negotiation is to try and summarize what happened and then tell our members. And once our members have been told, it's then basically available for the public. I think that's the answer to the question.
I just have one more. In certain fields, even though there are PhDs or doctorate degrees, not necessarily PhD, as the terminal degree, is it not? Are there not certain fields where it's very uncommon to find instructors or people to be instructors and professors with those terminal degrees, even though they exist, like even though there is an actual degree in that field?
I think so. Yeah. Can you answer that? You want to answer that?
Yeah, definitely. I think I'm proof of that. There's exceptions to every rule, and I think a true progressive university recognizes those exceptions and has it laid out in their collective agreement. But yeah, especially definitely in my field, there are exceptions to the rule.
Good afternoon. First of all, I'd just like to say that I support the faculty 100%. First of all, no problem. First of all, I'm an international student, and I did my first undergrad year in the States. So I'm not really used to these unions with universities. It's basically, you know, if you don't want your job, then you can leave. Like, there's no one's there to protect you. But just a question, I'm trying not to be biased here, so I'm looking at the situation as an outside perspective. And in a way, we are being, okay, the students have an obligation to pay the university for our courses. So we do that on time, we pay, so we should get our education because it is our right, we have paid for it. So in a way, it's just the university having a problem with the faculty, not with us. But we are the ones being, suffering the consequence. We've paid, we've done our part. So it's time for the university to give us our service that we deserve, which is you guys. So the way I see it is they have to figure out how to make you guys happy in order for you to teach us. And in another aspect, I'm not really sure, I understand that money is an issue with BU, that they have a budget, and I respect the fact that they should probably emphasize more, putting more money into paying you guys instead of building gyms or stuff that we really don't need. It isn't the of the university. So that's my little rant there. But just wondering if it's out of line asking this question, and feel free to tell me. Why do it now when we're a month or almost 2 months away from just finishing the semester? Why not do it like, let's say, the first week of next term, where we have the chance to drop classes and everyone can drop and get 100% refund, and the university will actually feel more pressure to actually give you guys what you want? I wasn't going to ask this, but I...
Okay. The precise timing I can't speak to, but one of the things I can say is that in Manitoba, the way labor law works is that we're working with an expired collective agreement right now. Okay, so that document protected us until March of this year. If we don't reach a new contract within a year of when that thing expires, that contract no longer protects us. Okay, we have to start from scratch again. All right, and so there's a tremendous amount of pressure to get a deal done within a year, because if we don't get it done within a year, that contract, that CA, just goes away. Okay.
So, and then just to elaborate a little bit, if you think about the process of negotiation that as we've been engaged in it, it started back we tabled our opening positions, I think, in late April. And then we had some meetings throughout the summer. I won't go through all how timing works and so on and so forth. But we are trying to convince them that they should do some stuff that they don't want to do. They're trying to convince us that we should do some stuff that we don't want to do. And this works, and this goes, and this goes. As usual with employer-employee relationships, the employer has a considerable amount more power overall. They hold stuff. So we have to, over the summer, try and work on them with logic, which I'm good at. But eventually that might wear out, and that might not work anymore. And at every stage, they can just say no, no, no. And as often in employee-employee relationships, at the end of all this, the employee's biggest tool is withholding the service that they provide. Don't like doing it, but it's your biggest tool, because if you do that, the employer is in a bind. Can't stop anymore. Can't just say, I don't want to answer that question. They actually have to do something. So that wasn't available to us at all in May, June, July, August. Right? That sort of addition to the negotiations at the table wasn't there. It just came there at the beginning of September.
Because we just came here at the beginning of September.
Exactly. So it's very regrettable to us that this is how things go. It's not what we want. But that's the thing that can get them to talk to us in a much more open, let's make progress, get this done way.
And just,
It's going to be really, really, really quick.
Very quick. If you think about what you're suggesting, moving the strike back, if we knew we were going to strike, you never know we're going to, if we did. What you're asking us is, why don't we reach a point in October where we're not making any progress, and then do nothing for 2.5 months? And that doesn't work either.
And just a question, I have some professors that, well, not some, I have maybe one, that told me that they're not with the union, because I guess they're part-time, or I'm not really sure how that works. So, for example, if that class gets offered, which is once a week, I'm sure a lot of students that are in my class, it's a really important class for our degree, they still want to attend, but at the same time they feel, you know, that crossing the picket line. But that prof isn't really with the union, so are we really crossing picket line if that prof isn't supposed to?
If that prof is a sessional, they are a member of the union. They may not have paid their $1 to get the union card, but they are governed by BUFA.
Oh, okay, yeah, because they told them. Oh.
The university can't hire anyone to teach stuff and not have that person in the union.
Yeah, that's why we were kind of confused. Okay.
For people who in the back who didn't hear that, people can't be hired, as Derek understands it, people cannot be hired to teach courses who are not members of BUFA. So the people that are standing will be able to ask questions, and then I'm going to cut it off after that. Go ahead.
I do support chief folks a lot, and I want to kind of address the student body. As much as we're a part of this, it's about their jobs and their working environment. So if we take it too personally, we're kind of missing the point of what they're doing, protecting their jobs and their working environment. It's unfortunate we're a part of this, so we just kind of have to live with it. I don't want to say it, but that's the way I view it, and I've been here for 7 years. The thing I wanted to address is I'm not here about. At one time, BU was talking about starting a master's program. With the new hiring laws, with master's students, if you got this, you'd be able to work at other institutions where they teach undergrad classes. Or what is that even on the tables?
Can you clarify?
Well, I know they were trying in the English part, starting in Manitoba, very centered master's program, graduate studies, and I was wondering if someone was to enroll in that, how is the new proposals for working structured right to allow for that, or that is even entered thing?
I don't believe that's a part of what's being bargained, but for example, we do have a few master's programs here now, and there's nothing about those that give those students, those graduate students, privileges to teach or not to teach. Any course that's offered sessionally is offered to a person who's qualified to do it, whether they're a current graduate student here or not is irrelevant. And so as far as that goes, it's not part of what we're bargaining over. Because it's not, as far as I know, it's not.
Yeah, no. Thank you.
So I would like to address Dr. Poff's getting rid of the small class sizes, because unfortunately, as much as she says it, we are not U of N, and we never will be. My 3rd and 4th year classes have 6 to 12 people in them. Will you guys be fighting to keep small classes? Otherwise, I won't be able to get my major done.
Yes, we absolutely will. I mean, that is just ludicrous what she's saying. I mean, if you go through the Faculty of Arts, which is my home faculty, I mean, dear God, she'd get rid of half the departments, because there are some very small ones. And as a historian whose class size has doubled in the last 13 years, I look enviously at some of the departments where they still have been able to maintain the small classes. I came here from Trent, another university that really focuses on small class size, and I can tell you that qualitatively, they're just better. Students are more comfortable talking to us, you get to know us. Yeah, we are absolutely, you know, she may think she has the ability to just come through with a scythe and, you know, get rid of everything, but yeah, we're going to fight. You bet we are.
I just have a quick picket line question. I'm not interested in crossing it, so I just was wondering about the university gym though, with the clubs and activities that are sports that are going on there. Is that considered crossing the picket line?
We talked about it after the marathon session. We just had 2 hours to speak, so I don't think there's a problem with that. I think
you might have stumped us.
In terms of just using it recreationally for your own use.
Well, like I'm involved with an organization that rents its Sunday evenings for a sport, so I'm just wondering if I should be suggesting that we don't do that.
One thing to consider.
Sorry, I asked about that yesterday as well. In our meeting with BUSU, and it was, Joe indicated that he thought that it was fine
that's what I thought.
for students to continue to go to like fitness classes or to use the gym facilities, much like you're allowed to go to the library and like faculty members aren't going to be upset with you.
We encourage you to go to the library and keep studying our stuff. Do it. And we encourage you to stay fit.
I've heard from faculty and I've heard from numerous people that during the summertime and even early September that negotiations were happening very, very slowly. I understand why you didn't strike during the summertime, but why didn't negotiations happen a lot more frequently? It just doesn't make sense to the students.
It doesn't make sense to us either. I've been here 13 years. This is my 4th round of negotiations that I have had to endure. The same pattern has obtained every single time. The union tries to meet in the summer. The union says, come on, let's go. The administration drags their heels. Every single time. You have to ask them why they do it. I don't know.
A couple of particulars because I was there all summer. So in July, they told us that we had a meeting in early July where they said we can't meet again for 3.5 weeks, something like that, because they were busy with different things. That wasn't our preference. We said we were open, we were all in town. Enough of us anyways to do it, but that was their answer. So we think for the rest of July we didn't have anything with the other service. And in August we had a few, but they were out of town for a while there, or unavailable for a while there. That's what I got on that. And then with respect to it taking so long, right? As you said, for the last 13 years it's been like that. I've learned by talking to Joe, our chair, and also someone who used to be a VP academic, that prior to that, maybe more than 15 years ago, that wasn't the norm. Joe remembers with great fondness bargaining rounds where everything was done in June. And the VP that I spoke to, the former VP, said the same thing. When I was bargaining with the union, when I was VP, we had everything done in June. We had no problem with that. We loved it. Very, very happily have that happen. I can't. I don't know why it's changed like that. I haven't been here for that long.
It just sounds to me that vacations take priority now.
Not ours.
The other thing I'd ask you to consider is whether
Can you go to the mic? Sorry.
The other thing I'd ask you to consider in terms of why this thing has taken so long is whether you think that the unprecedented use of consultants and lawyers who are making more than $300 an hour might be a factor in terms of why this thing is dragging out. Okay. What's that? And it's only the administration using them, okay? We're all volunteers, okay, on our side. We have to wedge in negotiating between teaching, research, all that kind of stuff. It is unprecedented for this university to sort of hire out to an outside consultant at more than $10,000 their bargaining priorities. And it is equally unprecedented for them to go out to Winnipeg, hire a lawyer to come from Winnipeg, drive 2 hours here, 2 hours back in order to bargain, okay? We're all on site, okay? We're here, we're committed, we've told them we will bargain anytime we're not teaching, okay? I just ask you to consider that.
I just want to add one more thing before maybe we finish. I've known Lynn for 13 years, and I'm not trying to sugarcoat, I will not use another word that I don't like. I just want to say that she might be having big classes. But the only thing I've heard about Lynn over the years, and I can say the same thing of the younger generation around me, is that Lynn is an extremely good instructor and a very good researcher. And these people are also fighting for their career ahead. And we've got 5 professors.
sure if the faculty has any closing statements.
Sorry, I have one more question.
Are people in the audience okay with staying for one more question?
Are you comfortable letting me know what's going on with our exam on Monday morning? I'm not very good with Moodle.
As long as we're on strike, there is no way I'm coming to class on Monday, but as I mentioned in class, when we come back, be ready to write that exam. So study.
Okay, one more thing. Do you want to know my login still?
I asked, they said I'm not allowed.
All right, thanks.
Thank you.
Is it a question?
I don't know.
Okay, then wait. Okay. So would the members of the faculty like to make any closing brief statements?
I know I speak for the whole group. I just want to thank you for taking an interest. Those of you who are able to support us, we're deeply grateful.
All right, so I'd like to take this time and thank you all for coming, and a big thank you to the faculty union for coming and answering our questions today. To the students that if you have any questions or concerns and you want to discuss any of this, please feel free to come by the office. And we're always open to discussion and relaying any sort of information to you that we have. Pardon me? Or strike headquarters. Yes, yes. And that's at the Park Community Center. It's Louise and 14th? 15th. Louise and 15th. And so faculty members are there. And if you have any further questions, I'm sure that they'd be willing to answer. So again, thank you for coming out today.
Thank you.
Before people take off, just a couple of things. Yesterday at the Student Forum, Health Studies and Education students each asked BUFA to try and coordinate a meeting with each of the Teacher Society and the Nurses Union, and we're working on both. We have scheduled one with the Manitoba Teacher Society for Education students tomorrow morning at 10:30. And it will be here in Suds. And the Health Studies one, we're still waiting on getting calls back on that, but we will send an email about that. And people, we're going to clean up the chairs and stuff here, but if anyone feels like it, Suds is going to run happy hour.
Just wanted to add one more quick thing before people leave, just because it's something I feel pretty deeply about. I've been coming here for 6 years. I'm not a student anymore, but previous years, we usually hold the AGM, the annual general meetings here, and just because the strike is affecting you now, as soon as the strike is done, keep interest, please. These are huge issues, and the way to solve more problems is to voice your opinions. Go talk to BUFA, even when we're not affected at that moment. Please come to the meetings. You all go to university here. Come show your support and voice your opinions. Thank you.